everyone, and welcome to this spoiler review for She-Hulk, episodes 1 and 2 from the
GEEK
Buddies!
Hey! We're back at it again. Look, nobody knows what Mike's going to wear before the show starts, so every time it's a surprise. He's got his Stark glasses on.
I got my Stark glasses on because Marvel's back, baby!
Baby. I would have put on my Hulk hands, but I cannot work the mouse with my Hulk hands. So unfortunately, that's the game we're in here. But let's introduce ourselves. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies. Mike.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Shan.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer where you can currently see some of my current work because of Michael Vogel on Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City. Currently, because of Michael Vogel, currently Strawberry Shortcake Berry in this big city, Netflix, YouTube, all the above.
I don't want to get involved between you two, but I think you earned your spot, Shan. You don't have to constantly say it's because of Mike. You just say because you're fucking talented. Just say it right off the bat.
Well, he's the boss. He's the boss.
Yeah, but he knows he's the boss. You don't got to remind him. His name's on the door. I mean, I think he knows when he walks in the room and he's the boss. I'm just saying. Speaking of bosses, certainly we're going to talk about some boss stuff in this episode.
I got no dog. I got no dog in this fight. I'm going to let y'all hash that out.
That's right. Your dog's over there somewhere, hopefully asleep. Carbon Health, some powers and sponsors here on the Geek Buddies. We appreciate them madly. If you've got any healthcare questions or concerns that you need answered, head on over to carbonhealth.com. Download the app so you can have a doc in your pocket. It's on the go. We're all on the go nowadays. For those of you who we're getting out, the world seems to slowly be going back to normal, even though we get all these headlines. So you're out there, but people are still coming down with stuff, COVID, what have you. So if you want to go get checked out, go and check them out on their website. Find a place you can get checked out virtually, get checked out in person. All of it is possible. Oh my God, what is that? Is that a what is that?
That's my second monkeypox shot right there, buddy.
Whoa!
That red dot is what happens when you get monkeypox number 2.
Yikes. That looks like a monkey punched you. That's insane. That's unsettling. That's uncomfortable. But anyway, if you want to get that shot as well as any other shot, head on over to carbonhealth.com and go get checked out today. I mean, I'm sure Jennifer Walters might have thought about going to get checked out after that gamma blood went into her body. But we're going to talk about episodes 1 and 2 here. We're going to break it all down. We know 2 is the most current episode, but we're going to touch a little bit on 1 and jump into 2 and talk about it overall here mixed in throughout the show. So we appreciate you all joining us. Let's just start it off right off the bat. Mike Vogel, episodes 1 and 2. What's your overall feeling here as you're walking out of episode 2? A lot of people have been, launching their shots across the bow for the last couple of weeks on this show. It's at 6.5, 6.7 on IMDb, which is a little sad to see. What is your feeling about She-Hulk after these first 2 episodes?
I'm having a blast.
Yeah,
I am having a blast. Look, Jennifer Walters is one of the characters. She's probably I wouldn't say one of my top 5 characters in the Marvel universe and comics, but I really think She-Hulk is great. I think her comic runs have been really, really funny. I think she's a great, funny character. The way she broke the fourth wall in the comics, the way the comics kind of poked fun at the superhero universe, and the show seems like it's doing the same thing. I think that this just felt like it had a fun, breezy quality to it in the first 2 episodes. That was just especially for me, and again, I know not everybody agrees with this, but after sort of being disappointed in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and feeling like Thor Love and Thunder didn't necessarily reach the heights of Thor Ragnarok for me, even though I loved Miss Marvel, I was still feeling a little bit like, all right, well, where's my Marvel? And She-Hulk for me is really getting back to form. I think Tatiana Maslany is delightfully charming. I think the chemistry between her and Mark Ruffalo in the first episode was hilarious. And I think seeing her sort of step into this life of Jennifer Walters, the superhero attorney, which is what she is in the comic books, I think they're doing it in a really fun way with lots of fun nods to the MCU, some meta nods and some in-world nods. But it's just been, to me, it's just been a breath of fresh air. So I'm having a blast.
Okay. Shannon McClung, we know you like to be really hard on the comedy of things, and you're very critical on the side characters' actings that we've seen in the Ms. Marvel situation. So talk to us about how you feel how this is going after the first 2 episodes. Tatiana Maslany stepping in to play this character. Not an easy character to transfer over. Certainly not an actress you would think first on your mind to take a character like this. Do you like the world that they've set up here? Do you like what she's doing overall? And yeah, some of the meta stuff, Captain America's virginity, billionaires and overgrown children becoming superheroes. What do you think about all of this?
Thus far, I'm with Vogel. I think this show, I think it's an absolute blast. I mean, do I think all of the comedy lands? No. Do I think all of the effects are great? No. I mean, I think there was a little bit of a drop off in between episode 1 and episode 2. I mean, you have those incredible effects on the island. Yeah. Then that first shot of her going into the bar was like, the takes to camera when the effects are kind of not on point don't really work, because there's sort of an uncanny valley staring into the camera. It's like, are you looking at the camera? Oh, well, you're talking this direction, so I'm assuming you're talking to us. But thus far, I think Tatiana Maslany is not who. Yeah, you guys are right. I mean, it's not someone that would have sprung first and foremost to your mind, despite her incredible work on Orphan Black and Perry Mason. She's not the person that we maybe would have thought would have been the best choice, but thus far she's killing it. I think she's incredibly charming. She's very, very funny. I think the supporting cast, especially coming into episode 2, is really, really good. So yeah, I mean, thus far I'm just curious to see where it's going to go. I mean, like having a half hour comedy thus far, I think is working very, very well. But if the effects continue to have this sort of downward slide, it is going to detract from the final product.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say I'm not as high on the show as both of you, although I am enjoying it because Tatiana Maslany is so good here. And I agree with you, Shannon certainly showed us what she can do with multiple characters in Orphan Black. And there is a lot more humor in Orphan Black than you might think when you watch the show. There are some uncomfortably humorous moments. So she has an ability to do humor. But I think of Alison Brie, someone more naturally inclined to do humor and drama at the same time. You look at Glow, you look at Community, she would have been an interesting choice. But Maslany does a great job here. So far, and I've seen the first 4 episodes, we're only focusing on the first 2, but certainly so far she's doing great, and I love what she's bringing to the character. I love her uncomfortability with being She-Hulk, her trying to navigate this idea like, I'm a professional, I'm a lawyer first, I'm not a superhero, it's not what I wanted. Her back and forth with Ruffalo, such great, easy chemistry. Not an easy thing to do when you're walking into the 35th project in the MCU pipeline. This to have a chemistry with a guy who's been around for a while, not an easy thing to do, and I think they found it. She has really good chemistry with Ginger Gonzaga. Ginger Gonzaga is doing great work here on a severely underwritten role. She's doing great stuff here and bringing it. I think some of the hollow characterizations of the side characters are bothering me, maybe because I expect a little more weight and heft from the MCU stuff. So when I see someone who's like such an archetype, I just go, but I get it. You're doing a situation comedy. You're trying to make this work and whatever. And yeah, not all the comedy lands, but enough of the comedy lands that I like the world we're in. I just want to see a little bit more nuance, a little bit more of, how can I say, a little more layered comedic writing that would really kind of take this one to the next level. But overall, I am enjoying it for sure, just not as much as my 2 fellow comrades here. Well, let's move on to the She-Hulk story. Over the first 2 episodes, we get her, she's there with Bruce, hanging out, having a conversation and whatever life. And certainly we're finding out a cousin Bruce is never mentioned, having conversations with them. And then, of course, the Sakaran ship shows up. And this is how she becomes She-Hulk, which is a little bit different from the comics. It's kind of connected, but a little bit different from the comics. And then we'll see her navigating this on the island with Bruce, the thing the shelter he's built out for her, talking about the alcohol, talking about Captain America's virginity, trying his strength and all this and we see them battling like siblings at the end, almost a family rivalry at the end, before she finally breaks away. And he tells her, this isn't as easy as you think as it's going to be. And she gets out into the real world. And certainly in episode 2, we see everybody wanting her to be She-Hulk. She becomes She-Hulk, but it loses the case. So she gets fired, and then she has to kind of try to find a job. And she gets hired to lead this superhuman villain division here with Mr. Holloway. So, And then by the end, she has to defend Emil Blonsky and all of that, which I think is very, very funny. And we connect it up to Shang-Chi. We might be connecting it up to World War Hulk. So a lot here with her. Michael, I go back to you. How do you feel that they handled the Jennifer Walters storyline / She-Hulk storyline over these first 2 episodes?
I just love that you think it's weird that Bruce has never mentioned his cousin. That this is.
I think it's weird.
Really? How long have we known each other?
We're not superheroes.
To
be honest, we only hang out once a week. I would have mentioned
what's my cousin's name?
Matt Pinkerson. I mean, that's as close to family as I've seen. So.
No, I think it's great. You know what I think is really great about the show, and they hit it like right off the bat. A lot of times when you're writing a script and you're trying to figure out how you want to start a script, you always want like that first line or that first visual or that first thing. In a perfect world, you want it to in some way represent sort of the entirety of the show in some way, if you can pull that off. It doesn't always work, but if you can, it's really great. Like, what's that first moment? And so the first moment of her kind of looking right out at screen, even though that's not a fourth wall break, and having this speech, which is her closing argument about a company's responsibility. That if you have the responsibility to do something and you don't, then you are culpable. And this is a show about someone who gains extraordinary powers, but doesn't want to use those powers in the way that every other character in the MCU that we've seen thus far has used those powers. And what does that mean for her journey? So I think like right off the bat, they set up a really interesting thing. Like this is the first time that we've had a superhero origin story where the person wasn't like, I don't want to do this. Like, she didn't dive right in. Yeah. Like she didn't dive right into, I'm an Avenger. And all the little funny lines about like, do the Avengers have healthcare? Is there maternity leave? Like all this stuff, like it kind of is, they can poke fun at the MCU and the whole idea of superheroes by having a character that's like, yeah, I got this blood in me. I'm a Hulk now, but I have a life. I went to law school. I have loans that I have to pay, and this is what I'm good at, and this is what I want to do. And if you've read the She-Hulk comic, you know she maintains this life where she does manage to continue to be an attorney, and sometimes she saves the world and joins the Fantastic Four. So I think this journey for her, the setup of it is really interesting. And then everything with her and Hulk, like I think one of the things I was missing a little bit that Marvel does so well when they do it the best is just the subtle ways that they connect to the rest of the bigger story. So, her waking up in this house in Mexico and seeing the Iron Man helmet and that little musical sting that's the Avengers theme. Or even like Bruce's face when he's kind of joking that Tony said that this was a loner and he was going to show up at some point and take it back. And then he has like a moment of reflection because we realize that Tony's not coming back. And all of those little things throughout were super fun. I know a lot of people, not my favorite people on social media, kind of accuse the show of the Mary Sue of it all, like that Tatiana Maslany or Jennifer Walters is automatically better than the Hulk. But part of that is just due to storytelling. Like, do any of us really want to watch 2 years of Jennifer Walters running around doing the exact same story that we watched Bruce Banner do? No, like it would be boring. So it's kind of fun to see this character leapfrog over some of that stuff and go right to being able to like control her changes and kind of tell us a different Hulk story. So I thought it was all really, really great. I think that sometimes, and this is the nature of the Marvel TV shows in general, some moments feel a little rushed. Her origin, like they got into that car accident real fast and that blood went in and she was a Hulk and it was like, boom.
Yeah. This is it.
Yeah. You get to the end of the first episode, she's doing her closing argument. JAMEELA JAMIL comes in and is like, boom, okay, well, I'm a superhero now. So in the nature of like, we're doing these 30-minute stories, you're gonna have moments that you're like, oh, wow, I could have spent a little bit more time here. I could have made some room and relaxed. But if that's the biggest critique that I have, that's pretty decent. I agree with Shannon that they definitely did a lot of work on that first episode to make sure that they opened up with a bang as far as their visual effects. And when you're watching the second episode, you definitely see those moments where you're like, yep, they probably could have spent another couple weeks on that shot. Oh, yep, that one isn't quite nailing it the way they could. So I definitely think that will be something we track throughout, that we're going to be like, oh, this was a really great She-Hulk moment. This was the B team. This was the shot they didn't have time to get to before they had to deliver it to Disney+. So I think that's, those are my two big criticisms. It feels a little rushed at times, and The effects, I think, will be a sliding scale. But other than that, I think the story and where they're taking her is something we haven't seen in the MCU before.
Yeah, agreed. Shannon, yeah, interesting stuff here that Michael is bringing up. This idea of being a reluctant superhero for sure. That's you're right. If we're going to keep expanding out the universe, the way to keep expanding out the universe is just not having the same origin story repeat. It's actually having different points of views. Different characters have different personalities, different looks on being a superhero, what it means, what it can do to their lives. And yeah, certainly there are certainly some rushed sequences. But nobody seems to have an issue with her becoming She-Hulk, including her best friend, who's just kind of, oh, great, you can do this now. That's cool. It's a little bit rushed in certain moments that I think I can agree with some of that criticism for sure. How do you feel that they've handled the Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk storyline throughout the first episode with the training sequences and all, and her breaking out and then going to court and all of that happening there, and then boom, into the second episode where we see her lose the job because of what she did, struggle with being this idea of being the superhero, dealing with the family, and then boom, going on and working for this company here and having to defend the man who fought her cousin, very notably, way back in 2008, Emil Blonsky.
I mean, it is an accelerated journey, but thus far, I think everything is working. With the first episode, I mean, I agree with Vogel that her rehearsing her final remarks to the court, I thought that was great. I was just like, you're really setting up what the show is. Like what responsibility do those who have power have? And so I was like, oh, that's really nice. Like you're basically laying out right at the beginning, this is what the show is. Yeah. The moment where they get into the car accident, that was the wonkiest thing for me. So I'm like, okay, so like they happen to get into a car accident because of the Sakaran ship. They both happen to cut themselves, and the blood happens to it's very, very convenient. Now in the comics, it's a blood transfusion.
It's a blood transfusion. So in essence,
which, if you want to get down to it, would Bruce Banner really give his gamma radiated blood to someone? Like, there's no really smooth way to do it, and they just kind of wanted to hit the ground running, and that's what they did. And even though I was kind of like, that's a very convenient drop of blood, but it still worked. I mean, for the purposes of the show, it worked. Watching her whole thing, she goes into that bar, which, there are QR codes all over the show, which, I stopped and they all take you to like the Marvel site to read a She-Hulk comic. But, watching, these women who are strangers kind of come into her rescue. This is very much like a women helping women show. Yeah. And immediately as those guys start to be like, hey, we're just trying to be friends. We're just trying to be polite, which, unfortunately, I imagine a lot of us have seen in real life, and it's weird and it's uncomfortable. And watching her Hulk out and then Bruce immediately coming to her rescue, the stuff that Vogel pointed out. Yeah. I mean, when they're in that hut and you get the Avengers sting, you get those moments, you get the initials carved into the bar. You hear about how they built this bar. Well, Bruce built it. Really, Tony was drinking and complaining about Steve the whole time. Like, those are those sort of like fun little nods that we as fans of this franchise that, is going on 15 years old now. Those are the things like we really, really enjoy. And again, just watching her journey thus far, it's very, very satisfying. It was funny that when Tatiana, or not Tatiana Maslany, JAMEELA JAMIL, as soon as she walked in, I've never heard her with an American accent. That was a little jarring at the beginning. And then watching her sort of flying drop kick, I was like, okay. So yeah, again, all the effects the effects budget went to She-Hulk. Like, that was kind of a weird kind of wire shot. But then watching her reintroduction to Emil Blonsky, and who could have guessed when Hulk was recast with Mark Ruffalo, they're like, that we would ever see Tim Roth again. Yeah. And watching him as Emil Blonsky, I was like, you forget Tim Roth is an amazing actor and he's a charming actor. And is this an act? Is he actually sorry for what happened? I mean, we don't know. I think there are some interesting timeline questions, because at the end of Shang-Chi, in the stinger, in the post-credit sequence, it's Banner as Banner. Yeah. But then when he breaks out, we see the fighting sequence, the cage fight sequence, which was actually in the middle of Shang-Chi. It's like, when does this add, like this, that could be old footage that they just happened to get. There are some interesting timeline questions, but again, thus far, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I like what they're doing for the most part. Again, I do think they're rushing certain things. I would have liked to have spent 2 episodes in that hut in Mexico before she breaks out, because just as quickly she gets the Hulk serum, she's, as you said, the Mary Sue aspect of it all. I don't usually agree with those people, but I do think a little bit has a little bit of truth. The fact that they're rushing through this stuff, that she's able to do this stuff as well as Hulk, it does read a little bit like, oh, of course they'd do this. Of course they'd make this happen. I would have liked to, but Bruce in the end is right when he tells her, you don't know what you're getting into. People are not going to be as positive about this. You need a little more time to understand what's happening. So when she loses her job, when she's going through this career crisis, it's right there. And Bruce is calling her to, like, hey, I'm not calling to gloat. Well, maybe a little bit, but I'm calling to let you know about, to talk you through what's going on, because I know what's going to happen. And that's what family does. You may not always agree with them, but they'll reach out to you when they know you're in a bad state and try to help you through it, no matter what's happened before. At least that's what good family does. So I like that aspect of their chemistry is so great. She going through the work, going through the process, going through all that. I didn't mind for the most part, because, I mean, when Hulk wanted to be strong, he threw that rock all the way out there. So if he wanted to, him pushing her, that's all family stuff, family rivalries, whatever. That happens all the time, brother, sister, because that's essentially what they feel like. Even though they're cousins, it feels like brother, sister. And so all of that on the island I thought was great. And yeah, I think really some attention should be paid. And I know we're talking about Jennifer Walters right now, but those moments where we're seeing Bruce's emotions about the loss of Tony, the loss of Steve, about those things, he really takes them to heart. And we have not had sadly, we've not had a solo Hulk film where we get to actually explore that with Bruce, explore what that feeling is like to lose essentially the right hand and the left hand, the mom and dad of the Avengers, in one fell swoop, and what the world looks like afterwards. So I thought that was nice to have those elements there. And even though, the second episode, they're bashing the heroes and making fun of the heroes, we know what the truth is, which I really enjoy. But her journey through this whole thing, you're right. I mean, this is a woman's journey. So we're getting a woman's point of view. Are they hammering you over the head with it? Yes, a little bit, but sometimes you need to get hammered because you don't fucking get it. And so the guys, like I saw some people complaining about the scene with the guys hitting on her or asking, hey, we're just trying to talk to you. Yeah, that's not cool. No woman enjoys that fucking experience. That is not a cool experience to be all alone and 4 dudes are trying to talk with you. You're trying to stay on your own. You're clearly giving the body language that, hey, leave me alone. But hey, you should talk to us because we deign to talk to you. You should talk to us. That's not what should be happening there. So I like that they hit those points. I don't 100% like that Dennis is such a one-note character. I think there's more to explore if Dennis has some more levels to him, even though it's being used for comedy. I just think it's too hollow. So when she's going after him or when Ginger's going after him, it doesn't quite, or Nikki rather, doesn't quite have the weight that I was hoping. But I like that they're taking her through this journey of understanding, hey, yes, you're reluctant to be a superhero, but okay, now you've got to deal with it in the second episode. You've got to figure this out, lose your job, try to find the job, try to apply for a job. Boom, this happens. This job comes up to you. Now you're going to have to deal with Emil Blonsky and what that is all about. And I like the way that they're letting her be a lawyer as well as also navigating the She-Hulk situation. Oh, and also as a woman, you're watching her go through this story. When she's walking in as She-Hulk, isn't it just like an asshole boss to be like, oh, as soon as you show up for your first day, oh, by the way, you got to be She-Hulk the whole time. Wait, you didn't tell me that when I agreed to the job. So this idea of women being told one thing, you got to look sexier or you got to wear this, which still happens, ladies and gentlemen. I know that from a couple of people that I know, female friends that I know, who've told me that recently about their experiences. That happens. So she's got it now. And then we see her saying, oh, now people are going to think I got the job because I'm a She-Hulk. I'm sure every woman's sitting there connecting that subplot or subtext there of like, oh, they think I got the job because I'm a woman or I'm a person of color. Yeah. You could even go that far. So I like that they're throwing that element into her overall story as well for you to catch if you want to catch it for sure. But Shannon, let's move over to the Bruce stuff of it all. Let's talk. We've been alluding to it. We've mentioned certain things. What do you think about his role in all of this, attached to Jennifer Walters and attached to She-Hulk here? And I'm going to put the brakes in for everybody who's worried about it. Go ahead, Shannon. What do you think?
I think they're using him exactly right, and based off of episode 2, I think that might be the last we've seen of him. Like that and he was used for her introduction.
Yeah,
we get it. We get a great sort of training sequence. I mean, I do agree. Like the moment that she throws that boulder and he gets mad and throws one into orbit, like they are illustrating, okay, he is stronger than her.
Yeah,
like there could be that moment where he's just like, look, you're able to retain your entire personality. You're not as strong as me, so that's the trade-off for for your powers. But I thought they used him exactly correctly. I mean, the whole I had read, and I don't know if this is true. I had read that the whole sequence or the whole episode with the two of them, that originally that was going to be later in the season, that we were just kind of hit the ground running and she was just going to be She-Hulk. I think them doing this was a much better decision, because one, introducing us to a new character, like obviously we know she's connected to Hulk, but introducing us to a new character through an established character, I think is probably the best way to do it, especially because they are family. Like you get that brother sister relationship, even though they are cousins. And then he really is able, everything that you laid out, John. He's just like, you're leaving early. I mean, this is Empire. This is Luke leaving Dagobah before he's ready. I mean, he's like, you're not ready for this. And then when she gets there, she kind of is like, okay, he might be right. But I've made the decision. I gotta go forward now. So Mark Ruffalo, like, who knows where he's going on that Sakaran ship? Very, very interesting.
World War Hulk. Seems like everybody's alluding to that. Yeah.
Seems like that's what everybody wants it to be.
Yeah, fair enough. Everybody feels like it might be alluded to. Yeah,
because he's still very much has all of his faculties.
Yeah.
So, but no, I thought they used him exactly correct. And in looking at the ensemble cast outside of Jen, Bruce has gotten the most focus. So now going forward, he's now out of the way. They can focus on, first and foremost on Jen because it's her story, but they can focus on those supporting characters a little bit more.
Fair point. Mike, thoughts on the Bruce Banner Hulk situation here?
Yeah, look, I think Shannon, you and Shannon nailed it. I mean, I think he does a great job. I think in a lot of ways, we got to see more of Hulk here, talking about Hulk, since Bruce Banner hasn't had his own movie, or at least Mark Ruffalo's version of Bruce hasn't had his own movie yet. In Avengers, we know that that's his secret. He's always angry. And in Avengers 2, we know that Natasha sings him a lullaby, which I love in the first episode when Jennifer Walters is like, how does that work? And he's like, I do not have a good answer for that. Don't really know. Can't really explain it. Let's move on. But and even in Ragnarok, where we got a lot of him, he was Hulk for most of it, and then he was Bruce, and then we get Smart Hulk in Endgame, but he's really just there. He's got a job to do. So this is really one of the first times that we've just not in a extreme action, emergency, life-threatening situation, just gotten to chill with the Hulk. And I think that was really, really fun and lovely. And getting him to sort of talk to Jen about his experience, I think there was a lot of fun to it. There was a lot of humor to it, but there was a lot of heart to it too, in a way. He really is trying to help her. I do want to say two things that you guys were talking about. I do find it funny about the whole Jen Walters and needing to make it clear that Bruce Banner is still stronger and everything. I do find it funny in all of the complaints about how good Jen Walters is at being a Hulk, because I feel like if we were doing the Amadeus Cho story right now, and we had a young boy who came in and got Hulk powers and all of a sudden was just a natural and was really good at it in ways that Bruce wasn't. And you had the older guy who was the seasoned athlete and the younger guy who was coming in that was look, I can do stuff better than you. I don't think anybody on Twitter would bat an eye. I think you would go, oh, cool, you got this young guy. He's kind of a fresh Hulk. But I think because it's a female, everybody's what? And well, let's make sure. I mean, Bruce is still strong, right? He's the Hulk. And I'm I just find it funny because I think that I personally have absolutely no issue with Jennifer Walters being more agile or just as strong or better in different ways than Bruce is. And so I think it's just... that's an observation that I had. And I also think... Can
I add to that and say...
Absolutely.
It leads to more of these fun interactions between them, which I think builds the feeling that you enjoy these two together. So it's a great point you make there.
Well, and to Shannon's point about the sibling rivalry, even though they're cousins, that's the fun of it. If you don't have Jen Walters being really good in ways that Bruce wasn't expecting. You don't have his perfect reaction after he throws that rock into space, where he kind of goes, "Yeah, I mean, I'm just showing you how just showing you how it's done." Because he is like, he's. What I think the thing that's interesting is you guys are correct that when Jen Walters gets back to the real world in episode 2, Bruce was right, sort of. Like Jen Walters was not prepared for what life as a Hulk is. But if you've read the comics, she's also right. Bruce tells her for the entire first episode, you can never be a lawyer. You can never go back to your life. You have to go be a superhero. Right. This entire show is going to end with Jen Walters being a lawyer. And she, at some point in this season, is going to meet another superhero who very likely will tell her, no, you can be a superhero and be a lawyer. I've been doing it for 3 seasons on Netflix, and I'm about to do it on Disney+.
And I'm blind.
And I'm blind. But I think that what's really great about this, and even when, John, your point about them making fun of the superhero stuff. Yeah. I think what's great is, yes, we know that the heroes are great. We know the Avengers have saved the world and they're all awesome people. Nothing Jen Walters says is wrong. Yeah, like the Hulk. Yeah. The Hulk is not dealing with 10 years of extreme trauma. The Avengers don't have health care. And they don't get paid. We all saw Falcon and Winter Soldier, and we know that's true. So I think it's like they do a really good job, and this is what the best comedies do. It's the Galaxy Quest balance. How do you make fun of something while at the same time loving something? And I think what they do really well in She-Hulk is they're really good at like poking holes. When Jen Walters' dad is like, where does Hawkeye, does he go collect all those arrows? You're like, that is a real good question. So they're managing to like make fun of a universe that we love in a way that doesn't feel like they're shitting on the universe that we love, which I think is a really hard thing to do sometimes, but they so far are doing it really well.
Fair enough. The next thing, I like the way they're doing Bruce. I don't want to add too much to what you guys said. I absolutely agree with you 100%. And I guess the Edward Norton door is closed because when she calls him and has the conversation about taking the case and going to represent Emil Blonsky, he says, yeah, I was a completely different person. Literally.
Great line.
Right?
Great line.
It's perfect.
And a great line. And that was one of those moments where the fourth wall break was perfect.
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry,
Mike, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
It was a very sweet exchange between both of them, and I loved the music cue there. One of like, hey, we've built that bridge again. We've crossed that bridge. We're fine. Yeah. We're good. And it was great to see that. I enjoyed that. It's a nice little flavor to have in the MCU. And so let's move to that here. Let's move to Emil Blonsky. So I'll swing back to you, Michael. How do you feel that they handled Emil Blonsky in this second episode here with Tim Roth coming back to play the character? Do you kind of see his logic here? And does having Wong use him at the end there, connected to the Shang-Chi scene that we see, kind of give a little more credibility and credence to what he said, that, hey, it was the super soldier. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't know I was a bad guy, which is an interesting point of view that has been coming out in comics over the last few years. This idea where the villains think, hey, no, I thought I was being the good guy in this situation. That's a nice flavor to add as well. What did you think about how they handled Emil Blonsky in this second episode?
I thought they handled him really well. I texted a friend of ours while I was watching it and said when he showed up, and they said, well, Abomination has been serving his time in this high security supervillain prison, and I'm like, well, we saw him in Shang-Chi. Like, is that did Marvel make a DC mistake? Like, what is this? Like, did this fall through the cracks? I don't know. So then when we got through the episode and you see the footage of him in Shang-Chi, I was like, no, okay, they're good. Marvel, keep on, Marvel, you're doing it right. So I think it was really interesting the way they brought him in. I love the way that they sort of tied it back to his appearance in Shang-Chi, because I think when Marvel is doing everything right, that is what they do well. I don't know where they're taking Abomination and Tim Roth. I think that, do I fully believe what he's saying to Jen Walters? No. Does he make some really valid points? Absolutely. Okay. Is Jen Walters going to represent him and get him off? Maybe. Is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I think when Hulk makes such a point in the first episode of destroying the blood samples, and then you've got Emil Blonsky, who clearly knows how the Hulk stuff works. I'm like, okay, is Jen's blood going to become involved here? Is that why Emil Blonsky wanted her? Is he going to be the big bad? Or is he going to be kind of a good guy who is reformed, and Abomination just wants to be cool and he's going to be a Thunderbolt? Like, it could go either way right now, and I really don't know. And that's my favorite place to be in when I'm watching something, is like, okay, is Abomination the big bad? Is Abomination going to team up with Jen Walters against somebody else? Like, what's going to happen? I couldn't tell you. But I think that, to Shannon's point, did we ever think we were going to see Tim Roth show back up in the MCU? No. And is he doing just a lovely job? Like, that whole sequence was just kind of just a joy to watch. Him talking about his haikus, kind of being like the innocent, aggrieved party, his 7 soulmates. Like, it was such a fun and silly scene, and allowing him to sort of go from the Hulk movie, where he kind of was playing a overly broad bad guy, let's say, to see where he is now, where I think Abomination is going to become this really funny character. Like, I think we're going to end up wanting to see a lot more of Abomination in the MCU, which is not a sentence that I ever thought that I would say.
That's fair. Shannon, your thoughts on Tim Roth and how they're weaving him into this story with She-Hulk? And by the way, spoiler alert, it's not the end of seeing Abomination and She-Hulk. So how do you feel about how they're weaving him into this story here in this second episode?
I mean, as all of the Marvel properties start to come under one umbrella more and more, I love that they're using the things that they have on the table. And Tim Roth was a great pull. I mean, because aside from being a really, spectacular actor, Tim Roth is funny. Yeah. And I think we're gonna get to see that a little bit more with this. I mean, just the fact that the thing that he says namaste right at the beginning, and then starts talking about his haikus. And when he brings up, he's like, oh yeah, I get it. I get the hesitation because of your cousin, the Hulk. He's still like, he has this newfound peace, but there's still that little glimmer of like, oh yeah, that guy that got me. Somewhat unfair, and him blaming the super soldier serum. He's just like, look, they pumped me full of that stuff. It's what made me do that. I mean, and honestly, from like a legal point of view, it's like, you can make that argument.
You can make the case. Yeah.
And really quickly, he also, his other point that is completely valid, like, she's kind of like, look, you kind of destroyed Harlem. Well, what the fuck did Hulk do in Age of Ultron? I mean, like, Bruce Banner is a hero, and everyone's like, yay, the Hulk is great. The Hulk has, like, demolished shit. He is just as destructive, if not more so, within the world of the MCU than Abomination was. So when he's like, look, I'm trapped here in this prison writing haikus to my soulmates, and he's, like, on lunch boxes because he's an Avenger, he's not.
There's a little resentment there.
Not wrong.
Yeah, a little resentment there. You can understand that.
His 7 soulmates from the prison pen pal program, which in terms of alliterative jokes is solid. I'm really excited to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus show up at some point and fully recruit him into the Thunderbolts, because I'm assuming that's when we're going to see Wong, is that he didn't actually break out. Wong kind of escorted him out because Wong is possibly following the orders of someone else. Yeah.
Or Wong just wanted a partner to fight with and put him right back and was like, look, I put him back. I needed.
I can't say. Go ahead. And what else, Shannon? Any other final words on this?
No, I mean, I'm glad that they brought him back, and thus, like, the guest cast, which I'm assuming we'll get into real quick. The guest cast is a blast. There was one actor whose voice I heard, and I was like, that's MLB.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoy the way they weaved him in. He is so good here. The chemistry, and like, legitimate hurt when Jennifer was like, don't just tell them what they want to hear. Speak from the heart. He's like, my haikus are from the heart. What are you talking about? So I love that he has progressed emotionally to this place, and it's such a great layered approach to a character like this because of, as you said, Michael, we got in that first movie, he is an overbroad villain in that first movie, and it's going to be really hard to go back to that first movie and watch his journey and think that maybe he thought he was the bad guy, because he is portrayed so strongly as the evil guy who doesn't want to take no for an answer and wants to take down the Hulk. It becomes a personal thing. And I think maybe that's what you're alluding to, Shannon, when he has that hesitation before he says the word Hulk, which is something he's still working through with his therapy and his meditation. I think is great. Let's get into the side characters here. We've got Dennis, we've got Nikki, we've got Mr. Holloway, we've got we got our family. Shannon, I go back to you. You're the comedy guy. This is where I think the show falters for me. And let me go first. But Shannon, you take it after I do. But like, I have a problem with Dennis. I think he's too one notes, and that's frustrating for me. And look, I'm not saying there aren't dudes like that for all the ladies out there. I'm sure there are dudes like that. I know there are dudes like that. I'm just saying, does a dude like that become I don't know. I just don't see him. I would like to see
lawyer. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. They do become lawyers, for God's sakes. But I wanted to see something more here from him. And when you juxtapose it with the oh God, what's the other guy that comes in who's got the bathroom the guy to wear the poop vest?
The guy from the other two.
Josh Segarra.
Josh Segarra. He does a great job. Great job doing that. But the family, I mean, Mark Lynn Baker is the only one who really works for me. The Chad thing is stupid for me. The mom is miscast, in my opinion. But the scene with her and her dad, with Mark Lynn Baker in the shed, that's a great scene. Give me more of that. I want to see more of that because I think that's where Mark Lynn Baker really shines. But this idea of giving her an entire family where the dad is too stupid that he doesn't understand, just becomes like a superhero one day, you get all the secrets the next day. The mom who's trying to set her up with a friend of hers, a young kid who she's too old for to teach him to be a superhero. The weird family friend who wants his wife to be her stylist. And then Chad. So to me, it just seems like
you just described half the families in Middle America.
I don't know. I haven't met them. You say that. Mike Vogel said that. I didn't. I haven't met them. But to me, I just thought it was a bit shallow, and I would have liked something more here in the comedy overall. And I do think NIKKI is a bit underwritten. I don't want to see the sassy brown friend archetype replace the sassy black friend archetype. I want to have more with Ginger Gonzaga. And I will say this, a friend of mine who works for post-production told me that they cut a lot of her scenes out of the first 2 episodes, and that frustrates me. So because she's a damn good actress and they have a great chemistry, and she's Latina, so I want to champion her because she's great. I want her to have more to do. So Shannon, you tell me, what do you think about the side characters and the comedy over the first 2 episodes here?
I mean, the moment I heard Mark Lynn Baker's voice, before he even stepped onto the screen, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Cousin Larry. Yeah. And so, I mean, I love Mark Lynn Baker. I love that he's starting to pop up and stuff more and more, like how he's popped up in Succession recently. Yep. So him, I really like. The Dennis character, I don't know. I don't know how much we're going to see of him going forward. Like, he might be. Okay, so clearly we're going
based on John's smirk, we will see more Dennis. So spoiler smirk from John Rocha.
You don't present a character like that, make it so distinct, and then just shove him to the sideline.
John's rounders tell. He just took an Oreo up. Dennis, I don't think we're gonna get I mean, we might see more. I don't think we're gonna get that much more from him as a character, because ultimately he's a third tier antagonist. The family, like Josh Segarra first, who I think is so funny on the other two. That he's such a funny actor. I didn't like the pooping line because I was like, that just doesn't work for me in like this very fancy law firm.
I disagree with you 100%. You always got to know where to poop in your business, in your office. Like
that is fine. I don't know if you say that to 2 pretty ladies on their first day.
2 ladies, regardless of looks, I imagine. Yeah.
Sure. I'm talking about those 2 ladies specifically. These 2 pretty ladies. You probably don't tell them where the good bathroom is for pooping.
They seem to be happy about it though. But yeah.
Disagree.
Oh, really? Okay.
They both gave him a look like, why would you talk about pooping right
I think
now?
They were like, thank you, God. Oh, but maybe you're right.
I think you're projecting a little bit there, but okay, continue on.
Okay, I will project away then. But I do think he's super funny. The family, I get it. The Chad character, the neighbor, maybe uncle character. I mean, I get it. I don't think that criticism is without validity. It's just sort of like Chad, even though he pops up in the closing credits in the drawings, and Bruce does mention him at the beginning when they're driving in the car. They do talk about Chad. But the Ginger Gonzaga thing, I mean, she's a fantastic actress, and it sucks that some of her scenes may have been cut, but ultimately the story is about Jen. And if those scenes did not serve the story in this limited amount of time that they have, that's the stuff that goes. I mean, and that happens in writing all the time.
Yeah, I'm just tired of seeing characters of color getting short shrifted, and they're always the first ones to get cut.
Right, but if she were a white actress, would you say the same thing though?
No, because we've seen plenty of white actresses get many things to do. Latina actresses don't. And so
but I think
we get a shot, I like us to have a little bit more.
Sure, I get it, but this is regardless of race. This is a storytelling thing that when you have X amount of time, it's the character stuff that gets cut. The character stuff from the supporting cast, that's the stuff that gets cut, and
Well,
that's
cut
just.
Dennis then. God damn it. Anyway, go ahead.
I don't think his line in the
you can't
bar.
say, wait a minute. You can't say that you want more Dennis and then say cut Dennis. I mean, this
I
is
didn't
kind
say
of
I
like
want more Dennis. I didn't say
you wanted a more nuance. You want
nuance.
more from Dennis, and you want more nuanced. I mean, this is just I mean, Shannon is right here. I think that Shannon is right insofar as let me rephrase. John is right that we should absolutely have more characters of color getting bigger roles and meatier stuff to do across the board. Like, that is absolutely 100% true.
That's where
the challenge when you do cast a show and you have these side characters, and this has come up, Johnny, you bring it up a lot, and I don't think you're wrong, but I think that whether we talk about when we talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier, when we talk about any of these shows, a constant criticism from you is, I wish these side characters had more story. I wish we had more to do. Where Shannon is right, you do shoot a lot of stuff. Like, those scripts have a lot of stuff for all these characters to do. And then you get in the editing bay and you know that you have to get this entire story into, whether it be 42 minutes, 37 minutes, 22 minutes, take your pick. You have a number to hit. And you're telling the Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes story, or you're telling the Kamala Khan story, or you're telling the Jennifer Walters story. And so you end up cutting a bunch of stuff just because it's not necessary to that story. So it does suck. It is bad. And it's not ideal that you lose those things, but that's how storytelling works, is you've got to stick to the main character's arc to get things done.
Yeah, fair. But I mean, with Ginger Gonzaga, we don't even see her react to her being a She-Hulk. Like, she's her best friend. I would imagine there's got to be a scene where she's like, "Oh my God, whoa, what can you like?" There could be a scene where the best friend is figuring all that out.
But here's the question. I mean, this is actually a great example of like what happens in a writer's room. Yeah. Like, you'll get an executive note that says, "Hey, Nikki's her best friend. I would love to see that moment where she tells her that she's the Hulk." And the response is, look at that first episode and the way it's structured and show me where you fit that scene. Like, because like as a writer, you got to execute. And you're like, well, if we're starting this with this speech that she makes, and then she's going to tell you that she's already the Hulk, and then we're going to flash back to the whole origin story and her and Bruce on the thing, and then we're going to show her in the courtroom, and we're going to have this big ending where she hits Titania, and that's the end. Where do we get the moment where I reveal to my best friend that I'm the Hulk?
When she shows back up into society after she leaves Bruce. When she shows back up into society, calls Ginger over, Ginger and them have a conversation, and she shows her what she can do. And like, I'm going to need your help with this because you're my paralegal, which I don't understand either. They should have made her a fellow lawyer. You're my paralegal. You've got to be able to help me navigate this when it pops up or when it happens. So there's the scene. It's not that difficult. It's just frustrating to not see what we did.
In the flow of this story, that would be a weird speed bump. Like, I think in the feature version of She-Hulk, that scene 100% works. Okay. But when you're on sort of an accelerated timeline, like, you don't have time for that. Like, the way that the show, it looks like it was intended to start was she's already She-Hulk. This scene has happened. We didn't see it. It happened in the past.
Yeah.
And by the way, you might be, I mean, John, I would almost guarantee you that the story, the scene that you just described, at some point in some draft, it's in there. And then just your other point, this is literally how it works. Like, I think one of the reasons that she's a paralegal and not a fellow lawyer is you don't get fired and get hired at another company and say, I would like to bring another lawyer over to the company. And it's a really funny line. She's like, I won't come over unless I get to choose my paralegal. And Holloway's like,
maybe that's a story. That's a story.
So you need her to go with Jen Walters, and you're like, oh, well, this works better. Like, and I like, again, I'm not what you're doing is, I think, a really good example of what writers do in the writer's room when they're breaking these stories. You have all of these ideas, you have all these characters you want to have in, and I have to do it every day, especially on Mr. McClung's Strawberry Shortcake scripts, is he turns in a script and it has to be about 5.5 pages to fit into the 4-minute shorts that we do for Strawberry Shortcake. And when it is 6.5 pages or longer, I go through and just start chopping everything up and cutting everything down just to get to the story.
We got limited time. Let's not open that can of worms.
Why don't we say writer X? I have never turned in a 6-page script, sir.
Let's not get distracted. Shannon, is there anything more you wanted to say on the side character? So I didn't mean to. I did want to, talk about this. I didn't want to.
No, I think it's a good conversation.
Yeah, good. And I'm available to any showrunner who's watching if you need me in your writer's room to help you, because I will fucking help you with your characters of color. Trust me on that. Shannon,
no, I mean the dings that you point out with the family, I 100% agree. I think Marklyn Baker is the one that we're going to see again and again, and that's why he was the one that had that scene with him.
Yeah. Mike, for you, any other side characters or Tatiana or I'm sorry, JAMEELA JAMIL only showing up for one sequence?
Well, I think so. A couple things. One, I agree with Shannon. If you're a lover of 80s sitcoms, seeing Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers show up anytime is great, and Marklyn Baker is just delightful. And I think he delivered all of his family lines the best. Like him talking about the Hawkeye arrows, even when he's very sweetly tells Jen, he's like, "Hey, you're not even the first Hulk in the family, and you didn't destroy a city.
You didn't destroy a city.
This is great." He was so delightful, and I do hope we see a lot more of him. I think that is it Chad? Chad was the least funny in that family dynamic.
Dude.
I thought mom setting up a mom joke, and it's again, not all the jokes landed perfectly, but mom setting up the traditional mom is trying to set my daughter up with a guy that I just met, but then tweaking it to being like, "Oh no, he wants to be a superhero. I said you could talk to him." Like, I thought that was funny. So I thought the family stuff was fine. I think Holloway, I was not expecting to be as funny as I found him to be.
I liked that. Yeah. I like Holloway a lot.
Yeah, when he showed up and hired her, and he had a couple really great deliveries, and then a little bit later in episode 2, when she's sitting in his office and he's talking to his assistant, and he says to the one, he says, tell this guy that I'm sending him to Minnesota because he hates cold weather. Tell him that's why I'm sending him. Like, it's just such a dick move. And I was like, that's a great little character. So I think he's a really funny character. JAMEELA JAMIL, here's my JAMEELA JAMIL journey. She shows up at the end of episode 1, says, "Who are you?" and does the weird wire kick, and then that's it. And I'm like, well, that was very sudden. But then we get to the beginning of episode 2, and they say that she was running away from traffic court, which I found really interesting. And we'll see how she shows up in the rest of the show. But I was won over this past week on social media when all the She-Hulk sites started retweeting video of her in her Titania outfit. Is that her Titania, right? It is Titania.
Yeah, Titania.
Titania outfit, walking through Hollywood and spray painting her name over all the She-Hulk ads that are in Hollywood. And I was like, you know what? I don't care what else she does. And like there is a Titania Twitter handle now that is verified of her as Titania just posting shit about Jennifer Walters. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. This is great. This is wonderful. So yeah, like I think that it's a bit uneven. Not everybody is as funny as you want them to be, but like having people like Marklyn Baker, like Ginger Gonzaga, like there's just they're bringing A games to a comedy thing. And again, if the criticism coming out is I liked this character so much, I want to see more of them. The good news is when you look at the MCU, whether it be Kat Dennings, whether it be Tim Roth, whether it be anybody, like they do a really good job of taking those actors that have small parts but do a lot with them and weaving them into the MCU in bigger ways. And so I'm really hopeful, just like we said about the Khan family in Ms. Marvel, that some of these people on the Disney Plus series that are really bringing their A games get to graduate up into the MCU and have some bigger roles.
Agreed. All right, well, let's wrap up here because I know Shannon's got to go. Shannon, final words here on anything we didn't talk about that you want to hit on, anything we need to mention? I mean, the post-credit scene is her just doing household chores for Marklyn Baker and showing her strength, so it's not much to talk about there. But overall, any final words you want to say before we wrap up this review here?
Yeah, we neglected to talk about the post-credits scene of episode 1 where Captain America Super funny. I'm really enjoying the show thus far. I mean, the again, going forward, if the effects continue to be like episode 2 and not like episode 1,
That's a fair point.
that will detract. I mean, that's something my personal eye is never going to get used to. But Tatiana Maslany, like Miss Marvel, you know, I mean, she's so charming, and she's a character that you imagine we will be seeing more of in the future once this show is done.
Fair enough. Mike, final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, you know, I think, and we talk a lot about this, like, Phase 4 has been a bumpy ride. I think post-Comic-Con, all of us kind of finding out that we are now in the multiverse saga and that we kind of know where we're going, gave it a little bit of a lift. I think the trailer for Wakanda Forever gave it a pretty significant lift.
Yes.
But if we're going to come out of Phase 4 with characters like Kamala Khan and the Khan family, with characters like Jennifer Walters, and they're going to be like taking the MCU and running with the ball for this next phase, I'm feeling good. So for me, so far, She-Hulk is kind of balancing out Phase 4 with some of my, like, I would say Miss Marvel and She-Hulk are balancing out my Phase 4 disappointment in some of the bigger things that I was really having high hopes for. And so for that, I give Jen Walters some big thumbs up so far.
There you go. I'm a little bit less glowing than these two, but I'm still enjoying the ride, and they do hold up better on a second rewatch. I will say this: I'm enjoying watching them again in different ways because I let go of my desire to see something heavier and understand what this show actually is. You know, when you do criticism, sometimes you can fall in that trap as I want it to be this. The thing is, you have to accept it as it is and then judge it from within as it is. And I hope any criticisms that the three of us have had are judging it from within the construct we're being presented of the show. So that's the approach I'm taking now as I do these reviews with these gentlemen here on the show. So thank you all so much for watching this spoiler review for She-Hulk episodes 1 and 2. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mike?
If you need medical help, call Carbon Health. If you need legal help, call Jennifer Walters. If you need geek advice, come right here to the Geek Buddies. We will talk to you about all things geeky. And here is what we can do. No, here's what you can do to help us do what we do. Definitely hit the like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content that he's got there, including tons of Geek Buddies content. Leave your comments below. What did you think of the first 2 episodes of She-Hulk? Are you sold on it? Is it not working for you? How are the effects? How is the comedy? How is Jennifer Walters? Where do you think the MCU is going? Where is Hulk going in that spaceship? Let us know in the comments below what you think. If you're listening to us anywhere that podcasts are available, go ahead and leave us some stars, leave us some comments, help us go up in the rankings so that more people can find the Geek Buddies. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
Absolutely. Big thanks to Carbon Health, who powers and sponsors here on the Geek Buddy. Thank you very much. Go to carbonhealth.com to get a personalized plan laid out for you so you can be in better health as well and hang out watching the Geek Buddies for a long time. You can download the app. They got 200 plus locations all over the country, 80 plus locations in California alone. They want to help take care of you, and they believe in supporting communities just like the Geek Buddies that support geek and positive interactions and positive conversations for sure. So head on over to carbonhealth.com or download their app today. All right, y'all take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new review or episode here from the
Geek
Buddies!
Captain America 5!